Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Comprehensive D&D 5e Guides. I'm gonna just start off with the fact that I am having a very bad day today and can't really handle the levels of anxiety and depression I'm dealing with. So as a coping mechanism, I am trying to distract myself from the stuff that's going on in my head by doing this. Remarkably enough, this takes a lot of concentration and study and work to make one of these videos. And because it takes so much thought, it's possible that this will help. But if I seem more kind of scatterbrained than I normally am, it has nothing to do with the subject and everything to do with the fact that mentally I am not okay right now. But hopefully this will help with that. So the last comprehensive guide I did was for the archetypes for the rogue in the Player's Handbook, and if you've been following this series, generally what happens next is I go through non-PHB archetypes for or subclasses for the chosen class. And today I'm going to break that just a little bit because one of you lovely fans actually requested on my first Rogues video that you wanted to know more about Matt Mercer's custom class, the Blood Hunter, which Travis Willingham has played a Blood Hunter on I think a couple different like one-shot episodes, and Taliesin Jaffe is currently playing a Tiefling Blood Hunter on the second Critical Role campaign. A lot of some people are not aware of this for are not aware of this class for a multitude of reasons. First of all, it is not published by Wizards of the Coast or anything like that. It's published on the DMs Guild. It is not legal for Adventure League play, which is a massive portion of the 5e audience. Play the D&D Adventure League. Like I was surprised when it first started at how popular it became, and what a useful infection tool it was for people that had never played D&D. Was to just go to their local game store on Wednesday nights back when they had what was called D&D Encounters and play Adventure League games. So Blood Hunter is not an Adventure League legal class or anything like that. It's not in any of the books that Wizards of the Coast publishes. It is on the D&D Beyond app, which has given it a little bit more visibility, and obviously it was made by Matt Mercer. It's featured in the new Critical Role campaign, and it was the history of the class. It was originally designed as a movie tie-in. That Matt just kind of cooked up really quick, and I'll get into that in a second. So a lot of people are going to be a little bit confused by this. Also, because it was not created by Wizards of the Coast, it was created by just someone with an incredible amount of knowledge of D&D in general. Like, Mercer's been playing since, I believe, the Basic Edition, or maybe it was just first edition or second edition, but he's been playing and DMing for decades. So he's very knowledgeable about not just D&D in general. He's knowledgeable. One of the things you learn as a DM, as you do it more often, you play with more different people, which is something that Mercer used to do a lot, from what I've heard. He was one of those people that was, again, I use the term infection vector, because it describes it pretty well. Because once D&D gets in you, it spreads and you get obsessed with it, and then you want to infect other people. Well, Matt Mercer can be considered a patient zero for a large portion of people. Like he was so passionate about it that he tried to get more and more people into it. And because of that, he not only did he play in DM a lot, but something that I think lends him to being a really good designer, because this is not the only thing he's built. He's built another class that is basically a ghost class. You come back from the dead is this thing, and I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's a cool idea. And then he's made a couple subclasses. He made an additional subclass for the Blood Hunter, and then he also made a subclass for the Bard, and then the Gunslinger he created as well for 5th edition. And he took the Pathfinder version of the Gunslinger, kind of translated it into 5th edition. So the thing that I think makes Mercer such a good designer as well as a good dungeon master is there's a difference between being a knowledgeable dungeon master and being a good dungeon master. And Mercer fits both of those roles. A knowledgeable dungeon master is someone that understands the rules, understands the meaning behind the rules, understands character creation, things like that. That's a knowledgeable dungeon master. A good dungeon master is someone who creates a compelling story, who allows their character, their players and their players' characters to drive the story, who isn't limited specifically by what's written down and will do what is best to make the most entertaining experience for his or her players. Matt Mercer is both of those. He's very knowledgeable, and he's also a very good dungeon master. And I think what it is that makes him as knowledgeable as he is and as good a designer as he is because he's played with a lot of people that have either never played before, or have limited experience, or haven't played in a long time. There are guests on Critical Role on a regular basis where this is the first time they've played, or it's the first 5th edition game they've played, or he's so used to dealing with new players, and I think that teaches you something that you can't learn any other way. When you have to teach someone how to play a game, especially if you're introducing a new player to a group of veterans, you learn so much more about the game by teaching than you do by reading or doing. It's one of the reasons that I use teaching as a way to train. Back when I used to be a trainer, I would actually have my trainees train me in things. Not because I didn't know what I was doing, but because they would learn more about how to do what it was they were doing by teaching it to me. So anyway, I think that's one of the reasons why Matt has made such a really interesting and well-designed class, to the point where if you go to the DM's Guild, it's a bit of a crapshoot as far as classes and subclasses and things like that, where some of them will be really, really well designed and well made, and will actually be very balanced as far as you can play a Blood Hunter in a party of people that are just using Player's Handbook, or even just the system resource document. And the Blood Hunter does not seem overly powerful. They don't eclipse everyone. They have some definite weaknesses. They have some definite strengths. And that's what a good D&D class should be, because D&D is not a solo game. It is a game that you play with other people, and therefore no one character should be able to do everything. They should have weaknesses that the rest of the party has to kind of make up for, and that brings them together. So enough about Matt and game design and stuff like that. Let's talk about the Blood Hunter itself. History-wise, the Blood Hunter was not originally the Blood Hunter. Way back in 2015, when Critical Role was just starting to hit really big audiences, and it was becoming this big phenomenon. They did a thing called D and Diesel. For those of you that don't know, Vin Diesel, the guy that provided the voice of Groot in the Guardians of the Galaxy films. He was in the Fast and the Furious. Like, he's been in a ton of different things. He's this big, tough, macho guy with his super deep, gravelly voice. Has been playing Dungeons and Dragons since he was a kid. And way back in 2015, around that time, he had a movie coming out called The Last Witch Hunter, which was based on a character he played in Dungeons and Dragons. The movie kind of bombed for a number of reasons. We're not going to talk about that. But as part of advertising for the movie, they asked Matt if he could run a really quick one-shot with Vin Diesel, where Vin Diesel could play his character along with a few other people, you know, as a way to advertise the movie and tie in Critical Role and stuff like that. And it was one of their first really big advertising deals. Like, now they have things like Backblaze and D&D Beyond and stuff like that. D and Diesel was one of their first big ones. This was a major motion picture that was being paired up with Critical Role, and it was met with resounding success. Matt built a character class so that Vin Diesel could do basically the things that he was able to do in the movie in the game. And that's what became the Witch Hunter. And Matt kind of released that because people were like, this was really cool. How did you do that? And Matt finally released the file of the Witch Hunter for free on the internet. And modified it and kept upgrading it and things like that to bring it more in line with 5th edition, to balance it a little bit better. And then the DM's Guild came out. Well, the Witch Hunter was copywritten. It was made for a tie-in with the movie The Last Witch Hunter. Matt couldn't release that on the DM's Guild. He didn't own the copyright to everything in there. So what he did is he changed it into the Blood Hunter and modified a few things, and that's where the modern Blood Hunter comes from. And the Blood Hunter, I've got to say, is one of my favorite classes from a mechanics standpoint. I think it's a really interesting class, and it plays very differently from any of the PHB classes, which for me, I've had people ask me about my own custom class. Have you ever thought about making, you know, another calling like this, or a calling that uses this or does this or this? And what I generally will tell them is, you know, if I'm going to make a new subclass, or if I'm going to make a new class or something like that, it needs to be something that I can't do with other classes. I don't want to ever make, like, I've seen like there was one called the Pugilist, where basically it was a barbarian monk hybrid. That's all it was a barbarian monk hybrid. And everything that you could do with the class, you could do through multi-classing barbarian and monk. It was just the Pugilist did it better and was more powerful, and therefore made it unbalanced, because both classes had their strengths and weaknesses, and by giving them all the best of two different classes without really any of the drawbacks, you had this really overpowered class. So the Blood Hunter does something unique. The way that you play the class, you cannot do the majority of these things with any other class. The way that you play it and the mechanics that drive the class make it very unique. And also, from a lore perspective, I love the lore behind this class. The basic idea behind a Blood Hunter is that they have gone through this ritual that permanently changes them. Think something along the lines of the Grey Wardens. I can't remember the ceremony that they go through, but that transforms them into Grey Wardens and allows them to sense Darkspawn. Or if you look at The Witcher, which is another inspiration for it, the thing that Witchers go through, there's a process that I can't remember that physically changes them, that allows them to use the potions and things that they use. That's kind of what a blood hunter does. Is they go through this process that permanently changes them. That means they are no longer human or whatever race that you are. They're part monster. You know, they basically have become their enemy to destroy their enemy. And that, from a lore perspective, is really interesting, because it creates, from a backstory perspective, you have to come up with a reason why you would be willing to basically become a monster, become part of the thing that you want to kill. You are making a part of yourself, and feeling so strongly that these creatures need to be destroyed that you are willing to give up part of your humanity in order to do that. It's a really cool class. Let's talk about the class specifically. Now, some very good advice that was imparted to me by someone who actually play tested and gave me feedback on my first class, which was the Dragon Knight. Was the first class that I ever designed. It's a platinum bestseller in the DM's Guild, by the way. I just want to put that out there. Same rank as Matt Mercer's class, though it took, I think, a year longer to get to that status. But we're not talking about that. The things that really define the class should be introduced in the first 2 levels, for the most part. The things that are going to define your class should be introduced in the first 2 levels. And this information was given to me by a friend of mine who is also a very not only knowledgeable dungeon master, but a very good dungeon master. I love playing at his table, and he regularly would do games for all dungeon masters, where everybody at the table was a dungeon master, and this was one of the few times that they got to play and not dungeon master. So he is a dungeon master's dungeon master. He's really great. But the actual tip was actually from, I believe it was Mike Merles, was talking about 5th edition design, and he mentioned that, yes, your first and second level are really important for a class, because they should define the class. And every single class I've talked about thus far, within the first 2 levels, the defining feature of the class has been present, with a few having things at later levels that kind of change how the class is played, or focus the class a little bit. But the kind of core design principles of the class are defined in the first 2 levels, and the exact same thing is true of the Blood Hunter. So start with starting at first level. You have survived the imbibing of the Hunter's Bane. The Hunter's Bane is a drink. It's described here as a poisonous alchemical concoction that alters your life's blood, forever binding you to the darkness and honing your senses to it. That's kind of your lore explanation for, you're a blood hunter, you're different. You don't work you don't work the way most people do. You have a darkness inside of you. So what it does, it gives you advantage on wisdom survival checks to track Fae, fiends, and undead, as well as intelligent checks to recall information about them. You are super good at tracking and just knowing how to kill Fae, fiends, and undead. That's your wheelhouse. The other thing it gives you is if you're actively tracking one of those creature types, so not just a specific creature, but a creature type. If you're actively tracking Fae, you can't be surprised by any creature of that type. This is a really useful thing, and it's a super useful thing for a first level character, because a lot of times when you're playing the game, you get to a certain place and you kind of realize what kind of creatures you're going to be dealing with. If you're going through a graveyard or studying a crypt, you're going to be dealing with undead. That's how it works. So the ability to basically make it impossible for the undead to surprise you is really, really useful. And the ability to track them and be very, very knowledgeable about them can really save your life. You know, it could be that you're having your first run-in with ghouls, and you as a player are not aware that ghouls have the ability to paralyze with their attacks. If you get hit by one of their claw attacks, you make a save. You fail the save, you're paralyzed. For a first-level character, paralyzed means you're dead. It doesn't actually mean that. It just means that you're paralyzed. But the paralyzed condition imparts so many bad things to you. You lose your turn. Any melee attacks made within 5 feet of you have advantage, and any hits are automatic critical hits. Your character is dead. That's how it works. So with a first-level character, being able to go, okay, you know, and this is where role-playing really, really will affect the mechanics of the player. Because the player might just go, oh, undead, I like to kill those things, and think on a mechanical level, this is what I'm going to do. But when you look at the role-playing aspect, you would go, well, I'm very knowledgeable. Can I roll an intelligence check to see what I know? You know, do I recognize this type of undead? Is there anything that I would know to warn my friends about? And you make advantage on the check. You roll high enough, you go, yes, you know this is a ghoul. You also know that ghouls have a poison in their, or they have this thing on their claws that when they hit you with it, you become paralyzed. That can be a big deal where you tell everybody, by the way, these guys can paralyze you. Stay away from them. Do whatever you can to keep them as far back as possible. And if somebody gets paralyzed, we have to save them ASAP. Just having that knowledge at the beginning of a fight changes the dynamics of the fight. You might see your fighter, instead of just running in, go complete sword and board and try and push them into a place where he can just sit there and take the defend action instead of attacking, so that he's significantly harder to hit. He's got his shield up, and they're just wasting attacks, trying to hit him, while the rest of your party shoots them down, simply because you don't want your party being wiped out because somebody gets paralyzed and you're not prepared for it. So it's a really, really useful thing. And then at 11th level, it actually gives you a little bit more. It gets a little bit cooler, this Hunter's Bane. You can flare the internal toxic scars from the ritual, using the pain to give clarity or promote your anger. You take damage equal to your Crimson Right die, which I'll talk about in a second. And then you get advantage on a Wisdom Insight check or a Charisma Intimidation check. So again, more things where you can use your knowledge to either read somebody better, or you can use your knowledge to just get what you want by intimidating someone and hurting yourself to do it. And that really kind of describes what this class is based around. This class is based around both a lore and mechanics idea of you are willing to hurt yourself to ensure that you can take out these evil creatures. The Hunter's Bane itself is you literally hurting yourself. You are drinking poison that scars you for the rest of your life in order to make you more deadly to Fey, Fiend, and Undead. And darkness in general, you know, bad things in general, you are there to destroy them. And so that is really what the class does. There are so many things in this class that require you to hurt yourself in order to do. And that's what the big mechanic of this class that doesn't exist in any other 5th edition class. It's based around the idea of you have the choice. You can hurt yourself and risk going unconscious or dying, in order to do more damage, or you can take the safe route, do less damage, or have less abilities or things like that, or do less things, but keep your hit points. And that's the constant struggle that Blood Hunters are going to be thinking about is can I afford to activate this ability because it takes hit points, or it reduces my maximum hit points, or things like that, in order to do this? Is it a good trade-off? And again, in my book, that's what makes good design versus bad design. Bad design creates options that are so useful that you really have no choice but to take them. If you don't take them, you are always going to be worse off than someone that did take them. Good design gives you choice. They give you an option and say, hey, you can do this, but in order to do this, you have some sort of disadvantage. Sometimes it's, if you do this, you can't do this other thing. Other times it's, if you do this, something bad will happen in addition to something good happening for you. Or even something as simple as, if you do this now, you can't do this later. Good design forces you to make choices, forces you to weigh what you want to do and see if it's worth it, compared to bad design tells you, no, this is the way you have to play the class, otherwise you are going to be underpowered compared to someone playing the exact same class, but they took this ability. And that's something that this class does so well and illustrates so perfectly. So this second thing you get at first level is Crimson Rite. This is another kind of defining feature of the class, is the Crimson Rite. What it is, basically, is you get to choose... Where is my mouse? There it is. You get to choose one of 3 rights. And you get to choose more rights as you get higher level. But what it is, the first 3 rights that you have are Rite of the Flame, Rite of the Frozen, Rite of the Storm. What these are is their damage types. Flame is fire, Frozen is cold, Storm is lightning. What it does is, as a bonus action, you can imbue a weapon that you're holding with energy. And what that does mechanically is it means you do more damage. You have this thing called a Crimson Rite die. It gets bigger as you level up. It was actually one of the inspirations for my dragon die, I think, Draconic Power die or something like that, in the Dragon Knight. And basically the brilliant thing about this is abilities at low level, because the die starts out as a D4 and eventually gets up to a D10 as you get higher, it means that at low levels, it's useful. And at high levels, it's still useful. Because the die keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger as you level up, these abilities never become, oh yeah, I also have this. No, it gets more powerful, it gets more useful the higher your level becomes. So it's a brilliant design strategy that allows him to do something that could be very, very broken. Adding dice to damage in 5th edition because of how crits work can always be a very, very bad thing. And the way that he does this with the Crimson Rite makes it scalable. It makes it so that the Blood Hunter never feels overpowered throughout the entirety of its leveling process. That's a really difficult thing to do. So the Crimson Rite, again, what it does is... Where the hell is my mouse? There it is. For Pete's sake. What it does is you can imbue a weapon with this extra energy, and it actually lasts until your next short or long rest. So it isn't like a one-time thing and then you have to keep doing it. No, you do it and then you've got it. The bad thing about it is you take damage because you are using your blood to do this, and blood is a big part of this class. Your maximum hit points are reduced by your character level. What it is you suffer damage equal to your character level, which again is different from your Blood Hunter level. Blood Hunter level is just the levels you have as a Blood Hunter. Character level is your total level of any multi-classing that you've done. So if you are a 4th level Blood Hunter and that's it, then you are a 4th level character. If you're a 4th level Blood Hunter and a 2nd level fighter, then your character level is 6. And it's done that way specifically because as you get higher, you get more hit points and things like that. And so if you were using this Crimson Rite and you had multi-class and stuff like that, it would be really easy to kind of cheese this so that you could get the extra right damage and stuff like that, but you really wouldn't take a whole lot of damage doing it. And again, it should always be something that you have to think about. Do I want to spend this? And so what happens is you take damage equal to your character level, and you reduce your maximum hit points by an amount equal to your character level. So basically, you lose, let's say you're a 4th level Blood Hunter, you lose 4 hit points, and your maximum hit points are reduced by 4. So that means as long as this rite is active, your max hit points are lower than they normally would be. And the higher your level, the lower your hit points drop. And this is especially dangerous for 2-weapon fighting Blood Hunters, because they have to do a Crimson Rite on both of their weapons. So that means they do this twice. So again, it gives you choices to get more power and be able to do more things with your weapon, but at a cost. Once you either deactivate the Rite on your own, or you or the effect fades, you regain those lost maximum hit points, but the hit points that you actually lost, you don't just regain those. So your maximum hit point returns back up to what it normally is, but then you're missing, again, for a 4th level Blood Hunter, what that means is you activate your rights, you go from, I'm going to use easy numbers, let's say you have 40 hit points. You go from 40 hit points to 36 maximum hit points. You turn off your Maledict, or not your Maledict, your Crimson Rite. Your maximum hit point goes up to 40 again, but your hit points are still 36. You don't magically get those hit points back. They're lost. You spent them in order to activate that. So that's what it is. And you can get various damage types as you get higher level. Once you get to 14th level, you actually have access to the Thunder, Psychic, or Necrotic damage types, and you learn more Crimson Rites as you get to higher levels. By the time you're 14th level, you know all 3 of the Primal Rites, which is Flame, Frozen, and Storm, and you know 1 of the Esoteric Rites, which are Roar, Oracle, and Dead, which is Thunder, Psychic, and Necrotic damage. So you know 4, by the time you're 14th level, you know 4 different things that you can imbue your weapon with. Just in case you go to the fire plane, you don't want to be putting fire on your weapon. It's going to be useless against them. So stuff like that makes it interesting. At 2nd level, you get, again, something that really kind of fits in with the class itself, which is fighting style. You get a fighting style. You don't get access to all the fighting styles that fighters get, but you get the ones that really fit the Blood Hunter, which are archery. So you can be a ranged Blood Hunter, which again is a very cool concept of a character. Dueling, which is designed either for someone using just a single sword and nothing else, or dueling can also be used with a shield. So if you want to be kind of a sword and board Blood Hunter, you can take the dueling and still get the extra damage rolls while still using a shield. You have great weapon fighting if you want to be big, strong. I have a big sword and I kill things with it, Blood Hunter, or 2-weapon fighting. If you want to be that dual-wielding Blood Hunter. So, again, the fighting styles, while not as varied as the ones that you get as a fighter, which is all the different fighting styles, they're specifically designed to help you make the exact Blood Hunter that you want to make. And that's a cool thing. And it really fits in with the class well. but again, it's taken right from. I think these are the same thing that the paladin gets. It's very common. The other defining thing for the blood hunter, again, the first 2 levels define your class in 5th edition. The other thing you get at 2nd level is what's called Blood Maledict. Again, blood is a big deal for blood hunters. I know, it's strange, right? What Blood Maledict is another way that you can sacrifice part of your essence, your blood, to affect other creatures. They're kind of like spells in a way, but in general, their debuffs or buffs are generally what they are. They affect either enemies, making it more difficult for the enemy to do something, or they affect you or your allies by making them be able to do something better. And that's what they do. In order to invoke them, first of all, the creature that you're invoking it against has to have blood, because the way that you do this is you are controlling the blood of another creature. And so they have to have blood, which is a limiting factor in it, designed to balance it. And there's actually one class that doesn't, or one subclass of this that doesn't require blood. And I'll get into that when I talk about the subclasses in that. But it has to have blood, and then you also have the ability to just invoke the blood curse, or you can amplify the blood curse, which makes it do something even more. But by amplifying it, you take damage. Again, everything is based around this idea of this is a class that has no problem sacrificing their own health and well-being to ensure that whatever it is that they want to do, whether that is killing a creature, keeping their allies alive, whatever, is doable. Is what they do. So again, they're constantly sacrificing themselves and hurting themselves to do what they want to do, which generally is killing things, but can also be protecting their allies and do things like that. You only get 1 use at level 2, and you regain expended uses when you finish a short or long rest. So that means that it's something that in general you have to use sparingly, but not quite as sparingly as something where it would require a long rest. You can, and then at 6th level you can use it twice. 11th you can use it 3 times. 17th you can use it 4 times. So as you get higher, this becomes something that you're doing more and more often, because short rest is generally not that difficult to get. It's just an hour. So definitely after 11th level, you're probably using 1 of these blood curses per encounter at least, because you just have them and can use them. I will go over the blood curses in just a second to talk about them and what they are. But I want to get to the rest of the class first, and I'll just kind of circle back to the blood curses. But that is really what defines the class. Is it's based on the idea of you hurt yourself in order to damage an enemy, in order to do what it is that you want. This is a very kind of sacrificing, the ends justify the means almost kind of thing. The initial pathway into this class involves you drinking literal poison that permanently scars you, and then everything that you do has the possibility of hurting you while you do it. All of the kind of class-defining features are built around that, should I sacrifice part of myself in order to do this thing? And again, from a role-playing perspective, that makes for a very interesting character. For a mechanical perspective, it makes for a really, really tactical experience, because you're constantly sitting there going, okay, and your knowledge of your enemy is your biggest your biggest advantage is understanding your enemy. And so that thing at the beginning where you get advantage on intelligence rolls, that is such an integral part of the class that I think a lot of people don't think about, simply because knowing your enemy and knowing how much damage they do, what kind of damage they do, things like that, will change whether or not you're willing to use your Crimson Rite, whether or not you're willing to amplify your blood curses and things like that against them, which blood curses you want to use, and other class features from other subclass features will be highly dependent on what kind of creatures that you're fighting. So that knowledge, this class really has a knowledge is power type mentality that you don't see outside of like wizards. And for wizards, knowledge is power translates into more spells. For the Blood Hunter, knowledge is power means you know what the bad guys are going to do before they do it. You know what you should be doing to kill the bad guys better than anyone else, because your entire purpose, you have scarred and permanently hurt yourself in order to ensure that these creatures cannot hurt other people because you have killed them. So again, we'll come back to the rest of the talking about the curses, the blood curses themselves. Third level, you choose an order. I'm not going to go through the orders in this one. I will make a separate video from that because this is already becoming kind of a long video. Yes, but the three orders are the Order of the Mutants, the Order of the Ghost Slayer, and the Order of the Profane Soul. And all of them are very different. All of them are very unique. All of them have really cool lore behind them and play very, very differently mechanically. And that, again, for me, is a really good indication of a well-designed class. The archetypes should feel different. They should make you play differently. They should feel different to your allies. You should be able to have multiple Blood Hunters in the same party that don't feel like, oh, it's just the same character twice. No, by choosing a different order, by choosing just different blood curses and different rites, they play massively different. Or choosing different weapons. You can have a ranged Blood Hunter and a melee Blood Hunter, and they play so massively different. And that, to me, is a mark of a really well-designed class. So that's third level. Fourth level, ability score improvement. It's like every other class. Basically every 4 levels, 4, 8, 12, 16, 19. It's true of every other class. Ability scores are really, really useful. There are a bunch of feats that gel really, really well with this class as well. So again, you're going to have choices on whether you want to take ability score improvements or you want to take talents or feats for this. With this class, it does require basically 2 ability scores. You're going to have strength or dexterity is going to be your attacking thing, which again, this is all about attacking. So strength or intelligence are going to be your attacking ability, and then wisdom is what all of your blood curses are based off. That's your casting ability. Both of those are very, very useful to the Blood Hunter, so you might be using more ability score improvements and less feats with the Blood Hunter than you would, say, a fighter, where you have one thing that you really need for it is your attacking thing, and then maybe Constitution, or like the Rogue that we just talked about, you just need Dexterity. So this one, you're probably not going to take as many feats because you're going to want to get 2 of those scores up as high as you can. Fifth level, they get extra attack. Again, that's in line with fighters, paladins. Everybody gets extra attack if you get it either the 5th or 6th level. That's just how it works. Grim Psychometry. This, again, is based on that original idea. Everything this class is built on is based on these ideas of they hurt themselves to ensure that they can do what they want, and knowledge is power. Grim Psychometry is knowledge is power. When you reach 9th level, you can take 10 minutes meditating on an object to discern vague details regarding any lingering evil or wicked past surrounding it. And you do it by making a wisdom ability check. And then the DM may tell you about dark events that have surrounded the objects, or hints towards some purpose, but it has no effect on things that are not quote unquote untouched by evil. And you can only use this on an item once. So what this is, you know, you come to a battlefield where something super bad has happened, you can pick up a sword and Grim Psychometry and find out, you know, what evil thing happened here. You're going through and, you know, you kill a bad guy before you're able to get information about it. You can just use this Grim Psychometry to find out more, get you more knowledge, so you are better prepared for what is going on. And because again, it has no effect on something that's untouched by evil. So again, you can't just use this to find random information about anything. It has to be something evil has happened to this, and it gives you more information. But you can use that information to better plan what you're going to do next. Prepare different abilities, get your, you know, tell your wizards to prepare different spells, stuff like that. Because you go, okay, this is what happened to this object. These are the horrible things that happened around it. This is probably what we're going to deal with. So again, knowledge is power, and they specifically use that knowledge to give them an edge in battle. Very much like a Witcher from the Witcher series. The class itself does take heavy inspiration from that, as well as a few other things. So at 10th level, you get Dark Velocity. This is just super cool. You get Dark Vision if you don't already have it, or if you do have Dark Vision, your Dark Vision is 30 feet longer. And then when in dim light or darkness, your speed increases by 10 feet, and attacks of opportunity made against you have disadvantage. Basically, that means if it's dim light or it's dark, you're faster, you're harder to hit, and you see better than most, because again, you have that connection to the darkness. So again, it's a very lore-based thing. When we go back to you know, the basics of the class, and the thing of, you know, you hurt yourself to do damage and stuff like that, and knowledge is power. This is kind of more along the you do damage to things. There isn't really a bad thing about this, other than the fact that it has to be in dim light and darkness. So if you have party members that are don't have dark vision, or not good in dark, or things like that, you're going to have issues, or your party's going to have issues, whereas you're going to become more powerful. So even that is based on the idea of your party can, in certain instances, take not damage, but put themselves at a disadvantage, because not everybody has dark vision or the ability to see well in dim light. So they may have disadvantage on attack rolls, while you are doing fine. You're moving faster. You're harder to hit. So again, it all boils back to that basic thing that we keep talking about. 14th level, you get what's called Hardened Soul. You are immune to being frightened. Very Blood Hunter thing. Nothing scares me. You know, I mean, that's exactly what it is. And you have advantage on saving throws against magical charm effects. You know, this is basically, you know, you have seen so much shit. You've seen so many bad things. Nothing scares you anymore. It's real hard to manipulate you, even magically. You know, that's what it's based on. So that's Hardened Soul, and then Sanguine Mastery is their 20th level ability. And this, again, really drives home that the idea of you hurt yourself to hurt the bad people. When you're below a quarter of your current maximum hit points, all of your Crimson Rite damage dice are maximized. So instead of doing, you know, at 20th level, you'd be doing a D10 on your Crimson die, you automatically just do 10 extra damage. There's no chance, there's no roll, you just do extra damage. And then, in addition, when you critically hit with a weapon attack that bears your Crimson Rite, you regain a use of your Blood Maledict feature. So again, this is all based on the idea of you hurt yourself to do more damage, and then critical attacks let you use more Blood Maledicts, which are ways that you can hurt yourself in order to do more attacks and do more things. So again, that's the whole point of this class, is this I have no problem hurting myself in order to ensure that the bad things can't do bad things anymore. So now we are going to where am I now? I'm actually going to go over the blood curses, and then that'll be the end of this video. I'll do another one where I talk about the archetypes, or the orders is what they call them here. So the first blood curse, and these are in alphabetical order. The other thing about this class is this is a very bonus action heavy class. Your Crimson Rite requires a bonus action. Probably about half of the blood curses require bonus actions or reactions. So understanding the action economy is really important in this class. And again, I enjoy classes like that. That's why I play a monk. That also means two-weapon fighting really gives you an interesting thing with this class, because you can either do it for an extra attack, which could also be extra right damage or other things, or you can use it for one of these blood curses and things like that. So again, lots of choices. So the first one, Blood Curse of the Binding. This one is a bonus action. You attempt to bind an enemy no more than one size larger than you within 30 feet. They have a strength save against your DCs are based on your wisdom. That's why you want a high wisdom score, because your blood curses are generally all going to be based on your wisdom. So this one, basically you freeze an enemy, and they can't. Their speed is reduced to 0 until the end of your next turn. So this is a really good one for highly mobile enemies or just melee-based enemies. You can just bind them, and if they're a melee-based enemy, they can't swing at anyone. You know, they can't hurt anybody. If you amplify it, and again, amplifying requires you to roll your Crimson Rite die and take damage. So this is the one that hurts you. If you amplify it, the curse becomes ongoing. Normally, this only lasts until the end of your next turn. You amplify it, it just goes on until you either cancel it or they make their saving throw. So the higher your wisdom score, the longer you can just keep someone rooted in place by basically using their blood to freeze them. They can't move. So very useful. Again, very much a control the battlefield type ability. Blood Curse of the Eyeless. When an enemy who is not immune to blindness within 60 feet makes a weapon attack, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on the attack roll. This is a way to save your friends. The creature can't be immune to blind, but you basically mess with their eyes, give them disadvantage on the attack roll. This is the blood curse that you see Mollymuck using most often, and it's an incredibly useful thing to keep your allies alive. By imposing disadvantage, especially at lower levels, imposing disadvantage on an attack is massively useful. It keeps people alive. It makes it very difficult for them to get hit. It can remove critical hits, which can be death for low-level parties. And if you amplify it, following the triggering attack, the affected enemy has disadvantage on the next attack roll they make. So amplifying it is really great for creatures that have multi-attack, or if they only have a single attack, you can amplify it and make sure that not only this turn, but next turn, they also are going to have disadvantage on their attack. So again, this is very much an action economy based thing. You're making them waste their attack and removing some of their actions from them because they now have disadvantage. Blood Curse of the Fallen Puppet. This one is so cool, and it's very much an action economy manipulator. Basically what happens is the moment a creature falls unconscious or dies within 30 feet of you, you can use your reaction, so this is reaction, just like the last one, to give that creature a final act of aggression. The creature immediately makes a single weapon attack against a target of your choice within its attack range. After the attack, creature returns to being unconscious or dead. Basically, somebody falls unconscious, you can go, not yet, and basically control their blood enough to make them make one more attack. This has got so many things that you can do with it. Your rogue falls unconscious. Guess what? Just because they're unconscious doesn't mean that you can't make them attack. And again, because rogues get one sneak attack per turn, not per round, they could get a sneak attack on that. One of the bad guys drops, like you're facing a bunch of bad guys and one of them drops. You can just go, do this, get him to kill another dude. And do that. Again, because it takes your reaction, you can't like chain this. It's still really useful. If you amplify it, they get a bonus to attack and damage rolls equal to your wisdom modifier. So again, wisdom modifier, very useful for blood curses. You want a high wisdom modifier. Giving them a +5 to attack and damage is a big deal. Blood curse of the Fending Rite. Basically, this is spells that require dex saves. You can use your reaction to deflect that spell. So fireballs, lightning bolts, things like that. You gain a bonus to the initial saving throw against the spell equal to your wisdom modifier. And this, you have to use your reaction to do it. And then if you amplify it, you grant all allies within 5 feet of you this bonus to their saving throws against the triggering spell as well. So this is, again, a very defensive-based spell, but a rite, a blood curse, I mean. And it's very, very useful in just keeping you alive. Things like fireballs and stuff like that, if your party gets into fireball formation, accidentally or on purpose, fireball comes for you, you can use this to ensure that they take half damage instead of full damage, or meteor storm, or any of those really powerful ones. As long as it takes a dex save, you can use this to save not only your own life but your party's life as well. Next one is Blood Curse of the Marked. As a bonus action, you can mark an enemy within 60 feet until the end of your turn. All Crimson Rite damage you deal to the target is double. And if you amplify it, the marked target loses resistance to your right damage until the beginning of your next turn. So this is basically, I want to do more damage. It's incredibly useful, especially if you're level 20 and all of your Crimson Rite damage is maximized. That means it's doubled as well. So you're doing tons and tons of damage with this Blood Curse to the Marked. It's very much that. And then amplifying it means even if they have resistance to the damage normally, we're going to get rid of that. So this is very much a very simple but very, very effective one where you kill things. Blood Curse of Mutual Suffering is another one that I just find super interesting. Because again, it just is something that you don't see in any other class in 5th edition right now. As a bonus action, you can link a creature within 30 feet for up to a minute, which in combat, that's 10 rounds, forcing them to share the pain they inflict upon you. The next time the cursed creature damages you with a weapon attack, this curse deals necrotic damage to the cursed creature equal to half the damage you suffered. This curse then ends. And if you amplify it, they take the full damage. So this is a really, really interesting one, because if you're getting, you're fighting somebody, you can use this Blood Curse of Mutual Suffering to basically give them a very, very good reason to not attack you. Or if you're in a position where they have advantage on you or something like that, or they just have an advantage over you where they can do a lot of damage, use this Blood Curse of Mutual Suffering, and it basically says, hey, listen, go ahead, go for it, go ahead and attack me. I want you to, dare you to attack me, because they're going to take just as much damage from it as you are. The limiting features of this, it does have to be a weapon attack, so it's kind of useless against mages, but you have other things that work very well against mages. Again, you have to amplify it for them to take full damage, but that can be a big deal. If you've got someone that when they hit, they do 4d10 damage, you can just, hey, sure, you want to, let's do this. You and I, let's dance. Let's do this. So really, really cool thing. It disappears as soon as you take that damage once, so it's not like it's ongoing. So you have to really kind of time it so that it's going to be useful for you. But it can mean the difference between the big baddie taking out your Blood Hunter or choosing to attack someone else. Yeah, so that's that one. Blood Curse of Purgation. This basically lets you let somebody make a save against the poison status, any poison condition. Within 60 feet, you can use your bonus action to give them a save. And if you amplify it, they can use that save against blind, deafened, or paralyzed. Remember that thing I talked about earlier about ghouls and how they paralyze and how that can be the end for a low-level party? With this Blood Curse of Purgation, let's say one of your party members gets hit by the ghoul, gets paralyzed. You can use this Blood Curse to, you have to amplify it. You can use the Blood Curse so that they can get another save, they can get out of the paralysis, and you may have just saved that character's life, in addition to giving them their turn back and everything like that, that they'll lose while they're paralyzed. So again, massively useful. It's a very much an action economy based thing, where they don't have to waste their action or their entire turn maybe dealing with these bad things. You can just use your bonus action. You still get your action to do other things. You just use your bonus action to make sure that they work as well as they can. Then the final one, this is, again, another kind of answer to the fact that the mutual suffering only works on weapon attacks. Blood Curse of Spellsunder. When an enemy casts a spell within 60 feet that requires a spell attack roll, so not a save, one that's actually a spell attack roll, which is quite a few of them, and targets you, so it has to be you that's targeting it, you can use your reaction to rend the spell from the air, imposing disadvantage on the spell attack roll. So again, this is an action economy based thing. It uses your reaction to impose disadvantage. And if you amplify it, they make a wisdom ability check. Or no, you make a wisdom ability check. So this is entirely based on your ability. The DC equals 10 plus the spell's level. So if it's a 4th level spell, it would be a DC 14. Another reason to have a high wisdom score. On a success, the creature spell misses you automatically. For things like Disintegrate, Finger of Death, other things like that, even things like Scorching Ray, where it requires multiple attacks, all this says is that the spell requires a spell attack roll and targets you. With Amplified, you can just fizzle the spell out. You basically just shoop, rip the spell out of the air, and you are fine. So again, this is very much an action economy based thing. This is modifying the action economy against spellcasters, which again, at lower levels, you generally are not dealing with spellcasters as much. The higher your level, the more spellcasters you will deal with, and the more useful this spell will become. The ability to stop a Disintegrate spell against you, which can just KO your character instantly, is a big deal. Or a Finger of Death is a big deal. Any of those spells that, or even if you're fighting a cleric and they cast Guiding Bolt against you, that makes you glow. It gives the next creature that attacks you advantage. The ability to stop these spells is a big deal. So that combined with the Fending Rights, where you can give yourself advantage on dex saves, you get a bonus to the saving throw. That makes you very, very deadly against spellcasters. So anyway, that's the class itself in a nutshell. Like I said, this video is already long enough, so I'm not going to go into the orders in this one. I'll do another one. But if you don't have it, I will have a link in the description telling you where you can actually go and get it. The DM's Guild itself, the class is pay what you want, so you can download it for free. You can pay $1, $10, $100, whatever you feel this class is worth. And Matt gets half of that money is the normal cut, which is pretty good. Yeah, if you feel like you want to pay for the class and actually give the creator a little bit extra money because he created something awesome, you can do that, or you can just download it for free. And Matt is perfectly fine both ways. He has said time and time again, he didn't make this to make a lot of money. He made this specifically so that he could create a really cool class, and so that people can do that. And the reason he made it pay what you want is so that anyone can really play this class. You don't have to pay for it. So yeah, check out the class, download it, see if your DM will let you play it. It's a really, really cool class. Like I said, I will be doing another video on this where I talk about the different orders and how they kind of modify the class and make it play a little bit differently. But other than that, if you guys like this video, again, please like it. It helps with other people finding it, with the fact that YouTube is making it even more difficult for even big channels to get their videos out, much less really tiny channels like mine. Everything you can possibly do helps. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. Hit the like button. In the comments, if you liked this, let me know. I am going to do the rest of the PHB classes, but I would not be opposed to doing more DM's Guild stuff. Even if the class is not balanced or something like that, I will talk about, okay, this is the class, and this is what it looks like it was trying to do, and these are the things that make it unbalanced, and these are the things that are good about it, and these are the changes I would make if I was going to allow it in one of my games. The class doesn't have to be a good class. It just has to be one where you want to hear my viewpoint on it from both a lore and mechanics perspective as far as how it should fit into 5th edition. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you liked this, if there's anything about the class or anything like that you'd like to know more about, or other classes that you guys are interested in me covering. Anyway, that's all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye!